Soulframe is making some of the weirdest decisions I've ever seen in a development of a game. It's just so publicly, just so honestly showing off its esotericism, not just with its intricate, weird armor designs, or the strangeness of its world, or the incongruency of its narrative, or just in general the mythopoetic oddness of it all. No, it's like even like the decisions of monetization, of the updates, how the UI works. Literally every microscopic atomic little piece of this game is just kind of freaking weird, and I think that is part of its art. But also, it's something to talk about. There is mounting controversies for Soulframe that is sort of bleeding and inspired from stuff and things that we've seen over the development and life cycle of Warframe, but at the same time, there is excitement and a momentum of hope and promise and maybe a little bit of projection and sunk cost fallacy from the Warframe community to really want to see Digital Extremes create another rabbit hole for us all to just kind of get sucked into and stuck in and grind our freaking lives away. Regardless, whatever reason you have to be excited for this game, 1 million people have signed up to the newsletter, to the alphas, to want to get in as soon as possible, just to know everything they can and to touch this game. And I might be one of them, but at the same time, very similar to maybe most of the audience now, I've got my critic hat on. I'm a little skeptical, and there's some things that are just like, it's like we need to talk about it, because I don't know if I want this sort of thing to be normalized. This is something that I've made over the past decade. Ever since I did the first review of Warframe, I was not very excited about the way that the monetization was built, the way that the gameplay loops incentivized certain behavior patterns, or really kind of was predatory towards certain personality traits that maybe are undesirable or unproductive, maladaptive, I would say. Gambling addiction, just in general addiction. These are things that I don't really want a game to just be like. I don't want a game to be slot machines. I don't want a game to just be that. Yet I can always enjoy Vampire Survivors. And I don't want a game to just be weird for the sake of being weird, but yeah, I can play Elden Ring and totally get it. There are fringes and concepts and pieces of things that you can put together, and it makes sense, and it be healthy and good and experimental. But Soulframe, what if it's just sort of, I don't know, like they did some market research and they just thought, yeah, this, that, blah, 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 it can just be weird, whatever, scribble, and just kind of throw it out there. You know, a lot of people do even criticize the Souls series for stuff like that. Is that what this is? Is this just a sort of mirage of depth? Is it just self-important? Is it, you know, just riding off of the hype of what Warframe was and the current trends of people enjoying Souls-likes? What is this experience actually? And what do we see, and what is revealed, and what can a critic like me, what can I do, what can I tell you to you know, give my best guess on? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? Or is it just weird and, you know what, you're going to have to make it up for yourself? I don't know. Let's dive into it. So Soulframe hasn't been too long in development. It was actually revealed July 2022, so not too long in the tooth, and yet at the same time, it's obviously borrowing a lot from the expertise, I'll say. I don't know if direct copy-paste coding or like assets. It looks pretty original, and yet you can undeniably see the DNA of what was Warframe. Like, this could be just like a sort of fan fiction Warframe, and I wouldn't even doubt if it's debatably in the same multiverse of Warframe. And I don't know if I just spoiled anything, but whatever. So the closed alpha, people have been able to play it and test it, and some people have enjoyed it. Some people have not. And that's going to, God, that's just going to be the case for the rest of the sentiment analysis. Is games not too far along in development yet. You know, we kind of have high hopes and expectations, and sometimes those expectations won't be met. Now, I'm somebody who, I'm not going to be like, oh, don't have expectations. No, have expectations. Absolutely. This is your time, and if you play Warframe, you know a lot of time is going to be invested in this game. This is going to be your money, regardless of free-to-play or not. They're already asking for money, and, you know, like, what can you buy? What do you get? The game is already selling itself before it's even out. So, if you want to contest, well, the game's very, very early, you can't have any criticisms. Well, they're already selling things in the game, so there are founders packs. They did just get announced in October, so this game is more or less on the verge of being, I would say, properly playable, whether you want to consider betas or not, full games. To me, hey, if you can spend money in the game, if you can buy the game is released. And so, with founder packs being announced, I'm feeling very comfortable, especially seeing the content that I've seen. It's time to do a little bit of a, a little bit of critique. But also what has me excited, and why I don't just like rant on any random game, is that this game is so clearly Soulframe, inspired by stuff that I love. One of my favorite movies ever, and my favorite Ghibli movie period, is Princess Mononoke. Undoubtedly, this game is inspired by that, especially with the nature versus like industrialism. I also think it fits so perfectly like as a pair with Warframe being sci-fi, and then we have this being like fantasy and like Arthurian myth. It's great. It's also inspired by Never-Ending Story, with its very weird magical world building. This is where this term esoteric gets thrown around a lot, like dark fantasy too. So with trends of, in general, Souls-like, esotericism, dark fantasy, just action RPGs, grinders, dude, like this game really is just like a checklist of like marketing terms of what we think is going to do well. But it also is things that I think uniquely Digital Extremes could do well. So yeah, that's why I can't tell you one way or the other. And just in general, the Souls-like weird MMO-lite hybrid thing, we're going to have to talk about that. Now, as somebody who has not touched the game, I can't tell you how Soulsian it is in that way. It's probably more Souls-like in a lot of the more broader paint stroke ways. But in terms of the socialization, I tragically am going to have to say, it's kind of less of an MMO than Dark Souls. It's really even less multiplayer than Monster Hunter, it seems. Now, at least originally. Now, how it actually is going to develop, we'll find out. But just so you guys know, it's being kind of claimed and sort of like touted as like, yeah, hey, we're making an, this online game, this MMO. It's not. There's a big difference between a game like Guild Wars 1, which is what we talk about, and I can't wait to play next month with the sort of reforged version. Gonna be fun, but that's like 1 player, 4 players, like it's a single player kind of game. And then there's Guild Wars 2, which is just like right out the rip. Even the tutorial is freaking like multiplayer, tons of people, you jump out, there's gonna be world bosses immediately, hundreds of players. Very different experience. World of Warcraft is an MMO, at least classic World of Warcraft. Final Fantasy XIV, with its just constant running dungeons and single player stuff, that's much less of an MMO. Now consider this game, which is going to be seemingly very single player, very, very single player. Like, I mean, most of the content I've seen was literally just 1 player, it's not an MMO. It's not. You can maybe party up, you can do some co-op, but it's not going to have that feeling or even MMO-lite experience that we get from games like Destiny or Fallout 76. It's not even that. It really is. There's just a hub town, you maybe hang out with some people, and then you go on an adventure and you do it. And that's kind of it. It's going to be sort of a dungeon crawler, or I don't know, dungeon runner, whatever you want to call Warframe. You're just going to be doing that. So that's the loop. I'm not sure what people were expecting or what's being claimed, but this isn't Dark Souls the MMO. No. Anyway, so the design goals overall that we know of as what they really want to accomplish is they want a slower gameplay experience. That's fine. Warframe gives us that go fast mentality. In fact, Warframe is the game that lets me go the fastest of any game ever. I'm a Vault boy, so yeah, just Vault, run through, and just that's awesome. Love it. And it's supposed to be more expressive and melee oriented versus Warframe being more obviously like ranged with the guns and the speed and the insanity of that. This one's gonna be just obviously, a little bit different too. But in the same sense, when I originally played Warframe, it kind of felt like this game does, at least in terms of footage. Maybe because we all sucked at Warframe back in the day, because the content wasn't really there to amp us up to go 1 billion miles per hour. It was always fast, but I don't know, I feel like this game could easily steer into that category as well, where they just start putting more and more enemies on the screen. It just gets faster and faster and more ridiculous, and I'm not sure if that is the way that they should go. I do hope it changes, but we'll get more into that later. Regardless, they are trying to have a design goal of grounded fantasy and a focus on restoration, spiritualism, things like this, rather than just like the insanely dark, morbid content of Warframe. Again, this is very much like almost built in the shadow of Warframe. And as well, they want to tout community-led, story-forward, and co-op emphasis. However, this is a point where it's like, clearly, no. I'm just, no. you're not. Community-led, maybe, based on sentiments and things like that. We do know that DE does listen. However, they definitely absolutely put their own mission forward first. You know, they're not going to make the grind any less grindier. They're not going to remove the debatably pay-to-win elements without friction, at least. They have, but slowly and specifically, intricately. They still do very much their own thing. So community-led, that's debatable. Story-forward, that is probably going to be the case, though. It does seem like they are building a narrative, at least based on what people want to see and hunger for this. But to me, at least in this game, I'm a little skeptical about that. Because how can you have a co-op emphasis, but then still have this story-forward progression? If you play Warframe, you might know what I'm talking about, where it's like, you just kind of do single-player stuff and then sometimes do co-op. And a lot of other games do this, and it's not something that I damned inside of a game like Where Winds Meet, or like, you know, it's... Guild Wars 2 even has like a single player, though you can't actually fully co-op all that, you know, sort of personal story thing. It's just, I don't like how separated it is already in a very instanced game that is championing itself as being this co-op or almost MMO-like experience, but I'm pretty sure it's just going to be, it's going to feel more like this is tutorial, oh, there's story. Probably would be more fun to watch it from a lore YouTuber because I'm not going to understand it anyways. Anyways, I'm already ranting, but those are the design goals, and already there's just immediately off the rip things you can kind of poke at with that. It looks like they have sort of like a grandiosity with their ideas, but in actuality, at least, you know, with bias of how they've handled Warframe, I'm just a little skeptical. And what we've seen so far doesn't actually seem to champion their goals. And in fact, when it comes to the expressivity of the melee content and the combat in general, there's a lot of player sentiment of people who have actually played the game, not just watched the videos, though my opinion of watching the videos and then hearing other people play the game seems to align one-to-one. It probably is what it is, and all we can do is hope and project that it'll be better. So, how does this game actually freaking work? Like, how does it actually run? Well, for one, again, I want to say it's not a full MMO. What it could become, though, would they add in like some open world kind of content or things like we saw actually with Warframe? Maybe, but it just seems like out of the gate, no. It's going to be a single player game that you sometimes play with your friends. That is what we're seeing. Now it's hub-based, so you have the Eidolon Garden, that's your social base. So think something like Monster Hunter. Players are going to party up for instance missions, and this is going to be 1 to 3 players. No, you don't only get 4 players, just 1 to 3 players. And the content is procedural caves and some overworld spaces. It seems like they've been really developing this sort of like world content, the nature themes and stuff with Warframe, and they're kind of like taking that, moving it over to this game. And there's going to be dynamic events, apparently, fables, that are story-driven quests. However, I don't know that verbiage of dynamic quests or dynamic events, not really sure if it pairs like similarly to what like Guild Wars 2 does, or like Rift with the open rifts, or, you know, it's nothing. I don't think it's going to be like that. So, hey, that's what we're trying to do, but it seems like it's probably going to be very lighthearted. I know even in Warframe, like sometimes there's events, you know, like quotation bunny ears or whatever, that things just sort of happen, but it's not to the epicosity that will happen in like Guild Wars 2, where there's entire chains of events that lead up to like a world boss spawning. Very much doubt that that's going to be the case, but Digital Extremes, if you're listening, I mean, that's kind of what you're proclaiming. You know, that's the carrot on the stick that you're hanging here. So there's a lot of stuff. The sociality, you know, the almost MMO-lite gameplay, the dynamic events, the player-driven narrative that we were all in this together, and like we were kind of exploring these themes all together and building this as a community. That's really cool, but this just feels... I'm sorry to say, but I don't think OG Warframe, which is what it feels like, not sure if that would really be received as well today as it was back in the day and as it developed. So, I don't know. People are feeling a little off. So the online features, it is always online. Even though I said a lot of single-player stuff, it's always online. It's supposed to be co-op focused. There's no PvP. And I think that's a tremendously, just a huge missed opportunity. Warframe, the way that it is, it can't do PvP. They used to try, and in fact, I was one of those weirdos who really, really liked the PvP, because I really like competitive, really ridiculous 3D movement, just like, you know, I play tank in Overwatch and Marvel Rivals. I'm freaking in the top 0.01% of Marvel Rivals as a tank. I like the stress and overstimulation. And I get that it can't work all the time for everyone always, and their netcode was just, frankly, Warframe netcode is not good. Don't let anybody ever tell you that it is. It's not. So I was hoping, actually, that especially with the sort of Dark Souls inspiration and apparently the MMO-lite focus of this game, that we would have PvP. Duels? We don't have duels. We don't have 2v2, 3v3s. Like, there's nothing here for the PvP community, which this aesthetic, this design, I mean, Guild Wars, World of Warcraft, I mean, even Final Fantasy XIV has some PvP. No PvP? Okay, anyways, no PvP. So you're just gonna join via parties and invite codes. I'm sure it's gonna be fine. It's just, gosh, man, every time there's these like hub town kind of games, it's always awkward. It's like, oh, I can't see you. Where are you? Oh, you gotta join my instance, but then also you gotta join my party. Anyways, Monster Hunter Wild sucks when it comes to that. But yeah, and then the progression is gonna work like this. There's something called packs, which are kind of like classes. And then you're gonna have the loot. Obviously, you're gonna have to progress through some lore, and then you're gonna get companions. I think in some instances I've read that it was like Pokemon-like, and really, again, this conflation and inflation of ideas and mechanics, really, it's not they're having like the best of those ideas or the biggest and fullness of all those ideas. It's just, yeah, you'll be able to collect pets. That'd be like saying like Black Desert Online is like Pokemon because you can have pets. Like, it's like, no, a lot of games can have pets, but like the hunter of World of Warcraft is in fact like Pokemon. So I don't think that this game is going to have the fullness of those ideas. It's just, here's a bunch of stuff and things you can do. We're going to throw it in there because here's things, you know, different multiple gameplay loops you can grind. And I'm realizing I'm already ranting, but I just want to kind of prepare you guys. Hey, this is what they're saying the game is. And already, I'm just trying to read off some bullet points and the back of the box, right? And I'm already like, I haven't played the game, and I can tell you it's not going to be like that. So just, there's a little bit of awkwardness when it comes to this. So let's talk about the community sentiment, right? So we know the facts of what this game is. What are people saying about it? Overall, I think what we can say and what we've read and just anywhere, right? People are going to be like, whoa, this looks really like something. Okay, so firstly, it's just so weird. Just stunning visuals, the creature designs, the atmosphere is novel. It feels so foreign. It feels like this is a new world, and that's really why we play games like this. I think it's something that I really championed about Where Winds Meet. While it is Chinese, when it comes to the West, we just don't have those sensibilities, and we don't know the mythology of wuxia. And in fact, actually, I would say Warframe, and probably this game through that sort of like as an appendage of what Warframe is, has a lot of wuxia inspiration. Regardless, we can also see that it's going to have a ton of deep lore, very dreamlike with its tonality, and that Ghibli weirdness where basically things aren't going to be explained. There's going to be dozens and dozens of lore videos anytime there's any bit of lore dropped, and it's going to be like a fun puzzle box. Now, I'm somebody, that's my favorite genre, okay? I mean, Severance, From, Silo, dude, I could run it down. Like, I just love puzzle box games. So, if you guys, and shows, if you guys need any recommendations, I can do that list video, I got you. But I think this game is going to be a lot like that, without like true mystery, like without true puzzle or unpuzzling, mechanically puzzling. You're going to be running around just killing things. So, it's just sort of like a cherry on top, but I do think it's going to be a substantial part of why people do play this game, which eventually became why a lot of people played the Souls-likes. Even though that was more flavor texty, it ended up being biblical in essence, which is really cool. Now, what we also have for sentiment here is going to be specifically what you can purchase and buy with these games, and that's the Founders Packs. Let's talk about that. So far, people are saying that they feel fair and generous. I would love to know your opinions, because I'm sure if you found this video, you're like me, you're a critic, and I would love to know, do you guys feel that this is fair, this is generous? I do want to once again state that as soon as a game is selling itself or pieces of itself, to me, I'm considering that released. I'm considering that available for review, which is why we're doing this video in the first place. But of course, as soon as I start playing, I am going to be critical, regardless. Like if the combat is clunky, if the costumes look stupid, yeah, I mean, the gloves are off. So regardless, so far, nothing has been inherently like, oh, pay to win, or this is weird, really. Like, it's been more or less, okay, this is cool, like, we're on board, all right. And I think they have a long history of what is good, what is bad. I mean, they've really towed that line with Warframe, so I do think they know, but I do also think that they're going to push it, and I think a lot of people are going to be a little uncomfortable with what eventually comes out. Regardless, it does seem like the devs are extremely transparent and overall people have seen like the updates of the game and it's been praised, and it does seem like it is following mostly with what the community wants. So I do agree with that. I think again that's what they learned from Warframe and its development with TennoCon as well. If you guys don't know, Warframe actually has like community built cosmetic items even into the game. Tennogen, I believe, is what it's called. And so yeah, you can actually buy that stuff in the game, and it supports like these community builders. I think that's so freaking cool. Like honestly, Warframe would not be what it is without its community. And in some ways, some very sad, sincere ways, I wish I was more a part of the Warframe community. For as small as I am, again, just being the first person to review Warframe and talk about it on YouTube, I have seen people, I've gone online and people are like, oh dude, are you Skylent? You got me into Warframe, you know, like you got me into this game. And it turns out I've played it significantly less than them. I'm just jumping in to see what it's like now, you know? But I have my reasons regardless. I think I'm still hopeful for Soulframe, but also I know that Warframe has done some weird things. And so, anyways, let's talk about those weird things. Let's talk about some criticism, guys. Clunky. Clunky, I think, is probably the #1. I think you'll see that the most written. People, not again, this is post Dark Souls, right? We've played Elden Ring and a bunch of other games. We've played Souls-like, you know, copies and pastes. We play freaking Roblox games, and people are still saying like, you know, I don't know. This isn't clunky in the way that like Greatsword from Monster Hunter is. This might be just unresponsive. You know, it's just not good. And debatably, it could be because a little bit that the game has a power fantasy that's satiated later on. This is a little Final Fantasy XIV is guilty of this, where like early on, like the game is just not the same as Endgame, where it's like significantly more rapid. And maybe the clunkiness also is in response to like the fact that you're supposed to be fighting certain Endgame bosses, or like the way the enemies are played later on. But look, I've seen the gameplay, I've seen the footage, and I have to say, it looks clunky. I don't know how to say this more gently, but I'm very disinterested. There is nothing about this combat that makes me excited in terms of like the physicality of it. There is no kineticism. At least in Warframe, which can be very floaty, at least you're going fast as fuck, you know, like you are going places. In this, if you were just to port Warframe combat and then just kind of take away the speed power fantasy, yeah, I guess that's what this game is. So far it's just less than Warframe, and that's something that can be fixed though. And even originally Warframe has turned into what it has turned into. So I believe what this game can turn into is something majestic. It's going to be weird, but it's going to be good. I hope, you know, again, that's hope. So some other criticisms: overly cryptic UI. Yeah, no, the UI is weird, isn't it? There's like a strange art style that kind of reminds of like old like European books, you know, like fairy tale stuff. And it's such a weird mix with like this very Unreal Engine graphics. I don't know. I mean, it kind of works for like a cheesy game like Oblivion, but in here it's just, I don't know, it's weird. Also, keep in mind that with all the strange siloed aspects of building your Warframe, and I'm going to keep saying Warframe because this game's so clearly devised from it, it was just like a bunch of random gameplay loops, a bunch of random sort of like upgrade paths and very novel ideas that most of it didn't work. Those things that didn't work, it seems mostly to be kind of put into this game. In fact, there's screenshots and things of people like, hey, yeah, this is just like the original Warframe's upgrade path. And I don't know, it is the way it is. So the UI, the UX overall is just a little weird. Language, the way the game is spoken, the way the game is described, I think that's part of the point, and I'm not sure that this one's going to get corrected. Dark Souls is also like, what the hell? So I think it's going to be weird. But yeah, and then overall, I guess criticism is on progression of how do you even progress? How do you get new stuff? Dude, holy crap, that is like Warframe's #1 sin. If you think I'm wrong about everything, there is no way anyone on this planet is going to say, yeah, Skylent, you're wrong about the progression of Warframe. Dude, the progression of Warframe is so random and weird, and like you have to follow like a YouTube guide to kind of like know what to do or what you really should do. You can really just waste hundreds of hours, I would even say, in Warframe doing nothing, basically. You think you're doing something, but it would be ineffective and doing nothing. So do I expect that criticism to be accurate with this game too? Yeah, probably, sadly. Next, there's some weird criticism about the gender imbalance when it comes to armor design, and I've got a little bit of a hot take with this one. I kind of, again, it's really hard to criticize this game because a lot of the weird stuff that normally would be obviously bad game design has kind of been the point of Warframe. And in fact, if you guys are excited, I am actually starting a series called, it's like worst game ever or something like that, where I talk about games that are good, that are built off of bad game design, like Vampire Survivors, like the gambling and like the bad graphics. It all actually kind of like is the point, and it makes it good, actually. So in this case, I do think that the armor designs being so alienating, feeling it's almost like Frankenstein or out of body, the horror of the self, the horror of the realization of what the soul really is man, it's something that I'm trying to chew on. I'm even reading Frankenstein right now, so I'm really kind of like getting into it. I think this game was trying to do that. By having some pieces of armor that echoed femininity or some masculinity, but overall it did seem like there is an imbalance, and it seems like they overreached a little bit with this. And a lot of people, especially in the ARPG/MMO scene, you guys are weird about gender stuff, like you're so weird about it, and so I think this has to be eased into. You can't just hit the ground running, and especially have it being like founder pack, like I spent money on this and I'm proud of it, and then just every armor piece is like a woman's armor on a man. I don't want to say that that is inherently bad. Obviously, that would be like a not politically correct take. But in terms of like the full expressiveness of this game, it does seem like they are a little narrow-minded or a little narrow in their perspective of what they're trying to say. Instead of like, they're trying to do like this big mythic thing. Well, you should show the totality of that and drip feed us and little crumbs. Let us chase the carrot and show us this stuff throughout the gameplay. Yeah, just getting slapped with the Founders Pack, and it's like, I don't know, my character's gonna have boobs. I mean, I wasn't ready for that. I thought this was gonna be more of immersive, like, spiritual journey for myself. Maybe more of a meditative experience. And but yeah, I'm gonna have boobs on my armor. I don't know. It's just a weird thing. It's a weird whiplash, I think. Another criticism is just overall confused identity, which I think for every single point of what this game said it was and criticisms of what people are saying it is, yeah, that's probably the underlying thing, is a confused identity. It seems like half of the helix of DNA of Warframe, but it's not Warframe, but in a lot of ways it is Warframe, and it's not Dark Souls, but in a lot of ways it's clearly inspired by it. Yeah, it's just what even is this game? And I think I could do more videos to kind of like essay out, sort of like, why are the curtains blue? I could do that. I could do that probably better than anyone. But at this point, with the game in the state that it's in, I genuinely do think the game has an identity crisis. I just do, especially because it so clearly is designed to pair with Warframe. I'm just not, that's got to be like the toughest needle to thread, so I don't envy the development team. But at the same time, they have some big boots to fill. Like, people are expecting a lot. So, you have a lot of money and attention. You have a certain success. Just don't make a shit game. Please and thank you. And the final criticism that we know objectively, in terms of sentiment analysis, is that overall it's a slow-paced game. And that alienates a lot of people who are hungry for a power fantasy. I think it's kind of weird, but Dark Souls and even Elden Ring is known as like the slower, more clunkier style of action RPGs. Like, am I mistaken? And yet, this game seems slower and clunkier and more awkward and less power fantastic than those games, even though it comes from the womb of Warframe, which is the fastest, most insane power fantasy game. So what's happening here? In fact, what I think I really want to hit on is that Elden Ring has a branch off game called Night Rain. And that game looks significantly more smooth, fast, agile, and just expressive with a myriad of different power fantasies, where this game really looks, I mean, genuinely. If the art style wasn't the way it was, I could imagine someone who's just getting into game design. I mean this, honestly, I think it has to come out this cruel. Because I am actually making games and I'm playing with Unreal Engine for the first time. Dude, I'm pretty sure you can just throw in some assets, throw it in, and like the gameplay would look vaguely like this. In fact, you can go on YouTube and you'll see I'm a solo developer and I'm making a Soulslike, and their development videos, gameplay looks a lot like this. And that's bad. because this is from the developers of Warframe. They've been working on games of this nature for a long time, and yet, you know, they just we'll get into a little bit later about what I really feel about the totality of the experience. But I'm feeling off about it, and objectively, a lot of people are feeling off about it. Can it be improved? Probably, but do we trust for it to be improved? I want to talk about that a little bit later. So anyways, so Warframe veterans, how are Warframe specifically veterans feeling about this? There's a little bit of a split between curious and sticking with Warframe. That's just going to be the case. Even though this game is trying to be paired well with it, clearly if you play Warframe, Warframe is such a distinct game, you're pretty much only going to play Warframe. Maybe at best, you might play a little bit of Destiny for that first-person shooter kind of vibe. But yeah, dude, Warframe is Warframe. Oh, and maybe Path of Exile. I think between Destiny and Path of Exile, Warframe, I'm not sure if Soulframe has a fit into there. Maybe for the crowd who more leans towards the Path of Exile type of content, but then again, you can clearly tell the gameplay is totally different. So yeah, and I think some people have been burned overall when it comes to like Warframe, and just in general. Obviously, I myself have been burned, and I've been very vague about that, but just like almost every major update has had some excitement and hype, and then you get in and you realize, oh, this is siloed content. This kind of perverts the whole thing that we were trying to do. I don't know. It's, again, I don't want to get too much into like a Warframe review. That could be like another video. But yeah, just a lot of people who are Warframe veterans. I'm not going to consider myself that, even though I have hundreds of hours. Dude, Warframe veterans have like thousands of hours. Even these people are like, you know, I've been burned by Warframe, and so Soulframe is, you know, I'm just kind of waiting to get burned by that. Or just waiting, you know, it's totally fair to wait for the game to be finally in a place where most people enjoy it, even if it doesn't when it first launches. That's fine. Overall, though, Souls fans, fantasy fans, how are we feeling about this game? People are intrigued, but they kind of were expecting more polish, and definitely, on this note, challenge. Warframe also doesn't have a lot of challenge in it. Like, to get to the challenging content is like, I don't know. I don't even think I'm at the challenging content. I'm hundreds of hours in. I don't think I am. Now, maybe it's easier to get to that content now than ever, but yeah, for the entirety of my experience playing the game, I've just ran through everything. I mean, I don't even know nothing. Like, the boss fights are just snooze fest. Like, the boss fights are bad. Like, the worst boss fights I've ever had in any game. Though I don't know about brand new bosses, so maybe. But, yeah, man, in the ways that this game is supposed to be very, very good, which is, of course, with a polish, with a challenge, with an almost cinematic style immersive gameplay, Warframe did that the worst. So that's awkward, and people are just in general worried that it's just not going to be deep enough for long-term play. This is also a little bit the case with Warframe. Yeah, it's a deep in a sense of more like wide. It's a wide game. There's a lot of different systems rather than just one system that's excruciatingly deep. A game like that is more like Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter is deep. Warframe, and it looks like Soulframe, is going to be more of a wide. So what are the alpha testers and founders saying? People are invested, obviously. There's going to be a sunk cost fallacy, especially coming from the Warframe community. But, you know, it does seem like there's a lot of people who are very, like, fervent. There's a ton of detailed feedback. There's a lot of people who are being critical and open about it. And it seems like Digital Extremes is very receptive to that. So that's good and bad, that maybe there's so much criticisms. But despite that fact, it does seem like they will make changes, and in fact, already they have made changes, or they're promising changes to the armor designs, at least with the Founders Packs. I still think they're going to go with that sentiment of weirdness and oddness and strange body shapes. Dude, I'm totally cool with that, and I kind of like that a lot about Warframe, but in a game like this, which is supposed to be more individual and more, you know, like building your person and customizing that person, I think you know, there needs to be a more sensitivity toward trying to get people to come out of their comfort zones. But yeah, I mean, there's clear improvements overall, actually, from if you've seen footage and people talking about, you know, the testers talking about like 2023 builds versus now. It does seem like it is actually making progress. It's not exactly like some other Kickstarter MMO that I know that hasn't quite made the good feeling of playing the game better. So hopefully. But asking for better combat feel is basically how people feel. Hopeful, but they need the game to feel better. Regardless if it's deeper or whatever, there is seriously something wrong, and I wouldn't even doubt If a lot of that comes from the online interaction, but that we'll get into that later. Content creators and press. I'm a content creator, but like this is just talking about like other people, so this isn't including me. But overall, people are saying that it's unique, but it's still kind of missing a mechanical hook. Like, what is the real sort of chew? What is the real thing that we're really doing here? I think, games like Path of Exile are allowed to be competitive even. Warframe wasn't. You can't really be competitive in Warframe. And for those who never have played a competitive PvE game, you might look at Mythic Plus, which is an esport from World of Warcraft, as well as the new game Fellowship. You can play Fellowship as an esport because it is. That's what it is. Hardcore World of Warcraft as well. Path of Exile, again, with its leaderboards and rankings. There are ways to make these kind of experiences competitive or speed ran or this or that, maybe survival or hardcore oriented. We're kind of exploring this as a gaming community, but it is known and it is possible. And Warframe has just completely no. The way they market, the way they do the updates, the way that they produce the game, the way that they make money, no, they have not done that. However, I would say that this style of game, if it's not going to be a proper MMO-lite like Fallout 76, if it's not going to be PvP oriented, I'm thinking, I don't know. What are we doing in this game? We're in this game for the experiment of what this game is. It's like an admission of, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what they're doing. We're just doing it. It's just a wacky Rick and Morty adventure, just got teleported, isekai'd, whatever, portal fantasied into this. And here we are. So I guess that's what the experience is. And I'm not sure. I don't know if I like that. I think I would, but knowing how Warframe really never kind of crystallized, that doesn't leave me with the word hopeful exactly. I mean, just barely. I'm ticked on positive on my little gauge. But yeah, I think people have some stronger sentiment overall. Like at first, things were exciting as it was announced. Then we saw gameplay, and then we're like, oh. And then over time, it's gotten a little better and better, and we're starting to learn what the thingness of this is. It's becoming. There's a traction of positivity, is what I'll say. Whether everyone is, off the fence or not, it's trailing more in that direction. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, the Warframe comparisons have been just inundated throughout this whole rant, but let's specifically kind of talk about that because I've got a feeling it's going to be very similar. At least in terms of how it exists as a games as a service. And this is really important because the incentives of like how they monetize or like how they do these sort of like breadcrumb trailed updates for players, this is going to that's the game. Like that's going to make what the game is. So it does have shared DNA with Warframe. So it's going to have iterative updates focused on player feedback, and it's just going to be a bunch of weird lore. How you feel about that, who knows? But for me, I can only handle so much weird lore where Dark Souls did this a little bit, but man, I really do need like storylines to like, I do like my puzzle boxes. Okay, some puzzle box movies do this. Let's do that better. If you just have 3 seasons from so guilty of this, of just madness, it feels mindless. Even if they're at the very end, it all kind of comes together. Dude, you gotta satiate us a little bit, like you gotta give us some real clues, some real hints that we really have like movement with the story, with the narrative, and as a community, it feels like we're building toward it and we're all solving it together. I do need that. Am I confident I'm gonna get that? No, I think I'm gonna go years without any solidification of any sort of actual narrative. I wouldn't even doubt if there's gonna be unreliable narration and stuff in this game. Like there's gonna be stuff that's like, well, actually retcon and like blah, blah. I got the feeling that's going to be the case. It is going to be free to play though. Free to play game. That's cool. Yeah, like Warframe. Totally free and fair. Except Warframe is the game I spent the most amount of money on because I felt such a need to keep up my productivity. Then again, that was unique because I was streaming, but I could imagine if you're playing with people and maybe you're missing a week or whatever, I do think that they are going to, while fair monetization, fair for certain players, and for other players, you're really going to feel the friction. I mean, there is already, I know that crafter timers. Do you like crafting timers, or do you just like, earning the loot and crafting your weapon? That's something that I could rant on, but basically, I more so, and I just know so psychologically, people enjoy earning the loot. You kill the boss, you get the giant freaking sword. That feels the best. A little less best is when you have to get materials and then craft, and then even worse is when you have to get random ingredients from all over the place. There's not really a substantial, like, oomphy, like, oh, you killed this thing, you got this rare item, you know, there's not that gratification of the gamble, and then you have to wait, you have to craft it and wait for it to finish. Feels weird, feels bad. Would be nice if I could just spend $5 and get it instantly, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, and regardless, it does seem like also with the shared DNA of Warframe is going to have a long evolution cycle. Like everything that this game is, what it could be, dude, this game is kind of being built over a decade. So this is why I'm immediately critical, because it just doesn't even matter. Even once it's considered released, it doesn't matter, dude, because it's not. Like Warframe 1.0, it's even debatable if Warframe is even in a fully cohesive state. You know, it's very broken apart and fractured, and I mean, maybe some people like, oh, you know, once the War Within started, that was kind of Warframe 1.0. Maybe, I don't know. But I just think it's a little debatable. So how does it contrast with Warframe? So Warframe, it's just speeds, it's guns, it's excessive everything. Soulframe is supposed to be grounded, slow, and even debatably meditative. But I'm not, you know, as I actually get into the game, I promise you, I'm going to hypercritically analyze if it truly is meditative. Obviously, as somebody who's philosophical as me, I really do hunger for these more liminal experiences. And that is something that I wanted from Warframe as well, but of course, being the speed, hyperactive, I don't know, ninjas in space fantasy or whatever the fuck, Goku, that it is, you know, okay, well, we can do it in this game, right? Supposedly. But I'm not sure that it will be. And overall, there's supposed to be fewer power spikes. It's supposed to be a more immersive simulation style game. But it's, you know, again, how immersive that is with the clunky combat, with the awkward, archaic, and arcade elements that it does have, regardless of going fast or being powerful, it still does, you know, it's still like Warframe. It's like a gutted Warframe. And so, yeah, I don't know. So in all of that, I think that pretty much encompasses how everyone feels, and I basically said how I feel, though there's a lot of more nuance that I would love to give, a lot more skepticism that I would love to inject, but at the same time, honestly, I think everyone has kind of said it for me. You know, at best, I would do is kind of just push people who are already not interested to just stay not interested, but the thing is I want to be hopeful. I want this game. And I'm personally, like, as somebody who's very visual, I do YouTube, I do indie game marketing, like I see these trailers, I see what they're promoting. And so I feel like I have a proximity, and I'll just say this, that I feel like I know that this game truly is an experiment. And not in the sense that they have really philosophically just stated on something and they wanted to put it out. I do think that this is almost a Hail Mary. This feels like, this is a good enough bet, let's try it out, we'll just make it with the community, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't seem like it's the foot forward that you would expect from a AAA company. Then again, some of the best games ever are experimental. Roblox games, itch.io titles, and hopefully some of my games as I push them out and you guys play them and they're like, this is weird as shit. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. That's okay. But when a game is going to be as monetized as this, has as much funding as it does, has a big team, yes, DE is a big team, it should be a AAA experience, and yet I'm kind of not confident that we're going to get a AAA game. And I don't think they can ride on that, oh, it's a small team doing something weird. I don't think we can ride on that anymore. Like, we know how big Warframe is. We know how they've acted with that game, going from being pay to win to debatably not anymore, to all the weird updates and its own ecosystem. Like, dude, Warframe has a lot of controversy. If you guys want a video on that, we can do that. We can dive into it. And just regardless if they've overcome that, it just has a certain kind of history, both good and bad. And I just feel like Soulframe is not learned from those experiences, but instead will repeat them. So eventually, will it be good? Will it be awesome? Will it be an adventure? Yeah, I think it'll be cool. I mean, it's going to be free to play, might as well try it. But am I going to invest the time needed to really be, so, I don't know, quote unquote, competitive with it? Am I really going to be able to sink my teeth into it and understand all the mythopoetic stuff and things that they're trying to say? I'm not sure. Maybe at best I'll play it a little bit, watch some lore videos, and pretend like I'm part of the community like I do with Warframe. I'm not sure. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, but I just try to divulge as much as I possibly could to get you, you know, kind of looking at it at the right lens. You know, a consumer friendly perspective. But I think, yeah, you know, sign up for it. Let's try to play it together. Let's try to have some fun. But I got a feeling that the first week, dude, that first day, that's going to be it's probably going to be borderline unplayable. I got that feeling. But I do think that after year 1, I think that that's when it's going to be kind of the time to really jump into it. So, yeah. I think it's going to be one of those games, you know, just tragically, just treat the whole thing like it's early access until eventually it's not, you know, whatever. That's all I got to say. Much love, friends and family. I'll see you in the next one.